Welcome back to the MMA Creators Podcast. You are joined by myself and Leo Cooper, and today we get seriously into the weeds of the creator space. We talk about everything that has happened in the last couple of months with UFC China, going to Bangkok, toe wrestling, 10,000 pounds on the line. Leo Cooper's decided he hates MMA and he's just dropping that out and he's never doing it again. Completely switched up his career path. A lot of different things have happened for us professionally and personally, and we get into absolutely everything in this episode. So if you enjoy it, drop a like, drop a subscribe, and also see you on the next side. Keep it casual. When's the last time we spoke?
What, in studio?
I would have been to China and Bangkok.
It was before. It was before that.
And the toe wrestling.
Yeah.
Oh my.
It was literally about a week before that.
Okay, so
That's why I wanted to ask it first.
The craziest month of my life in August, to be perfectly honest, and I haven't seen you since. So yeah, maybe we get into that first and foremost, and then we can obviously get into a little bit of MMA stuff, and then obviously what we've been doing in our own creator lives, because you've switched up a little bit.
Just a little.
You have a new girlfriend, you have new braces, you have a new outlet of media. So
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a mix up for you. So yeah, getting into my August. So at the start of the month was my mum's birthday. So we go as a whole family, which we haven't done for 10 years, to a cottage out in Norfolk, which was lovely. And the reason I tell you that is to paint the broader picture. So I go there for a week. I come back and then it is pretty much all out action from there. And I would say it was the most intense 4 weeks of my entire life. And it's rare that you can pinpoint a moment like that, but most certainly was the case. So I come back from there. I then fly up to Wrexham in Wales.
Oh, of course.
For one night, only one night, to visit one of my friends called Will. Shout out to Will Power Club. And it's basically a mutual friend who I followed for a little while online. And he's creating his own cult-like following in Liverpool, or Chester, I should say, around kettlebell classes, and has created his own new studio, has his entire class list absolutely packed out now. He's absolutely smashing it. But his grandma lives on a farm, essentially. And it is this incredible farm with many acres and this phenomenal house at the top of this hill where they have bees, that they have the honey, they have little goats roaming around, they have chickens, and it's just a very cool setup. But they also have what's voted as one of the best saunas in the country. So they have this beautiful log fire sauna just tucked away in the forest, essentially, just by the house, and then a beautiful natural lake where you can just go and dip in after. So we shot up there for a little bit of R&R, if you like. Barbecue, had a couple of burgers from the local butchers, chucked them on, watched the UFC, had a couple of saunas, and had a really nice weekend up there. We're kind of discussing doing a retreat along the lines of combat sports retreat.
Oh, like building one?
Yeah,
wow,
of course.
Okay.
So not necessarily building one physically, because all of that's already set up. They have all the infrastructure for it. So they have sound baths, they have saunas, like I said, cold plunges, and they're continuously just building out on this farm. So it's a really, really cool setup. In fact, it's actually one of the coolest places I've ever been, to be perfectly honest. Just the dynamic of it and how beautiful it is. It's unbelievable place. So we didn't speak much business there because it was a bit more of a relaxing one, but the plan is to sort of have retreats for fighters and athletes and things like that, and basically ship them up there for a weekend and just kind of have
I like that.
Yeah, a retreat. And they already run those anyway, so it's quite well integrated into what they do. So that'll be somewhere down the line. Regardless, I go from there, get back to England, and then back to Essex, I should say. And then pretty much the next day or the day after, vroom, I'm straight to China. And I mean,
I saw the videos. Fucking crazy.
Yeah, I haven't actually got round to getting the full edits of the videos. Obviously,
that's what I was going to ask you about.
We spoke about them a little bit, and I'm sure we can dive into the X's and O's a little bit more in a second. But China was a whole podcast in itself. Obviously, Lon was fighting there. I go out there with Frankie, who's one of my longest friends, almost known him for 20 years. So it was a really interesting dynamic just to go and have that experience with him anyway. Obviously, the result didn't go our way. Lou Bracus was out there as well, another fighter at Top Team. So we had a couple of friends there. His girlfriend was out there as well at the same time. Didn't go our way. Had some time in China after in Shanghai, which was a really interesting city, by the way. I'd never actually technically been to China. I'd been to Hong Kong, which is not part of China. And I'd been to Macau, which is, again,
different world.
Technically kind of China either. So although I'd been to that part of the world a few times, I'd never actually explicitly been to China. So it was the first experience I had. And Shanghai really impressed me. I mean, it was not like anything I expected whatsoever. We finished the trip with the 24/7 spas. I don't know if you've seen those.
No, but I can
imagine what that is. It's an interesting phenomenon at the moment in China where they basically run these 24/7 spas. So as you can imagine, it's 24/7 spa access, but it's not just hot tubs and saunas and steam rooms and things like that. It's pretty much a mini city in these enormous buildings. So you have all of that, and then you have karaoke rooms, you have arcade rooms, you have salt rooms, and then you just have shops everywhere. But everything is included in the price.
Oh.
Yeah, so you can go down to these restaurants, and there's these fruit restaurants, basically, where I was in my absolute...
That is your thing.
Yeah,
I'm not really a fruit guy, but
you're
definitely
not?
on that. I mean, I like it, but
What's your go-to?
Kiwi or banana. They're my two favourites.
Rogue, but there's actually a good mix, but it's just not many people go bananas outright best fruit. But regardless, circling back to the fruit station, unlimited fruit, and you can just walk up, take as many as you like. You sit down. It's very strange. It's like the Hunger Games almost. It feels like a social experiment because you have to wear these pajamas that they dress you in. China's a very cock-out culture. So they don't let you in these places without screaming to get your meat out every single second. So it's an interesting experience, China in itself. And I've wrapped that up in about 30 seconds, but there is...
I did want to ask you just on the, like, speaking more broadly, what does that feel? Obviously, last time you were out there, you and obviously Lon were coming off a win. So that the morale is high. What's that like? Obviously being in a place that is so impressive, being so, like, is so in your face as well. But under the sort of, with the loss in the background, obviously just previous, what does that feel like? How does that, I know that's more of a question for Lon if he was here, obviously, but obviously I guess you can kind of answer it, is how do you approach that, I guess, as a team in terms of morale? Because some fighters take that so differently and they can, losses can wreck them mentally. Yes. I don't feel like Lon is that kind of guy.
No, it's a good question because of course it's going to affect everyone differently, like you said, but it's also going to feel different to different people around it, right? So it's definitely valid. And I'm glad that you touched upon it because it is an interesting point. And because so much has been happening, it's almost like that chapter's moved. So I sort of moved past it, but it was actually such a big occasion in itself. And like I said, honestly, I could sit here for an hour and a half and just go through everything with the whole Macau trip from start to finish. But it was really strange because leading into it, obviously, I know how skilled he is. I know how talented he is. And it wasn't that I was worried for him. He was looking good too. It was more so just sometimes you just have a little bit of a gut feeling that just doesn't quite feel that good. And I felt a little bit like that going into it. And I hadn't had that before, to be perfectly honest. And you have to respect and realise as well, you're going against Charles Johnson, who has only faced the best. I said that before. I said that after. He's incredibly well-conditioned. He's very well-rounded. He's tough to keep down. He's very, very experienced.
Knocked out Joshua Van.
And he's a very tough out. Bearing in mind that you've barely had double-digit fights. I mean, he hadn't had double-digit fights.
He's 9, right? 9?
Yeah. His last fight was his 9th. So he's not had double-digit fights. And he's fighting top 15 caliber opponent with a lot of experience. So going into it, you have a very tough test. And obviously we get to the fight and we're sitting watching in the arena and it's just going exactly how it should go, really. It's going really
2 rounds up.
Kind of perfectly at that point, right? He's landing his shots, he's getting off, he's landing combinations that they've been drilling. He was just, I feel like, finding his range towards that second round. he was just off a little bit on some of his combinations and some of his shots. And he was just finding his range. And then I just think he got a bit tired. I don't necessarily think it was he got complacent. I just think he got a little bit tired. I think the grappling exchanges just wore his arms out, maybe a touch. And it was a high-paced fight as well. And especially if you're landing big shots on someone, they're just eating them and walking them forward. And you're taking them down and lifting them and taking them down and they're, boom, straight back up to their feet. It's not like you're mentally defeated, but it's a little bit along the lines of,
gotta keep going.
I wanted a bit of a breather there on those exchanges, you know. I could have done with a few seconds just to catch my breath. And he made a fundamental mistake. And that's the difference between fighting outside of the top 15 and fighting inside of it. Because when you make those fundamental mistakes and you're a very good fighter, more times than not, you can get away with it when you're fighting lesser competition. Mm-hmm. But when you're fighting people that are in that fight every single second, dialed in, eyes locked, well-conditioned, ready to scrap, they capitalize on chances like that. And I know he was, and his team was, they even said it to him, relieved in a sense, because it wasn't really going their way.
No.
And he knew in the build-up that he had a tough out on his hands as well, Charles Johnson. I was listening to him in the build-up to that fight, and he knew he had a tough test, and he did. But that's the difference between those experienced elite guys, is they are on every single second. So going back to your point about the morale and how he was, gutted. Of course, just gutted, as you are going to be. But there are different losses in this game. There are very different losses. And although a loss is still a loss, they look different. And what I mean by that is, if you're 33, 34 years of age, you've been fighting outside the top 15, you finally get your chance to hit the rankings, you've had a lot of big fights in your career in regards to the damage, and you're sort of coming towards the end of your physical prime, and you get that matchup and then you get knocked out and you lose, that's a very different proposition to where Lon is, where he's not even had 10 fights, he's still very inexperienced, and you're fighting a top 15 guy in your third fight in the UFC.
I mean, I think a good example of like that is Joshua Van. He's the exact same path. I mean, the guy's now fighting for a belt. I don't know what the odds are going to look like for that fight against Pantoja, but I'd argue they're pretty close. And how many fights ago was it that Charles Johnson beat him?
Yeah.
Not that many. So really you can, I don't want to say look at it as a roadblock, or that's how, a speed bump, should I say, that Lonnie should be treating it, but it's just a lesson. That's what it is.
I think as well, when it happened initially...
Were you in the corner?
I was in the crowd.
I was going to say, because I was looking for you. Couldn't see you.
I was in the crowd. So when it initially happened, the first thing, of course, is you're gutted and you're a little bit shocked and you're worried about your friend and hope that he's all right. That's the first thing. The second thing is it has happened now, right? It has happened, as obvious as that sounds. So you can't go back and rewrite history. So all that you can do now from that is look at it, learn from it, and try and draw, if you can, the positives, and also draw out the areas that you need to improve and highlight the areas that you need to improve. So I couldn't help but think at the end of that, I feel like that's going to be a good thing for him. I really do.
Necessary. I
just feel like sometimes, don't get me wrong, it doesn't look like that for everyone. Of course, you have outliers like Khabib and John Jones and Ilia Topuria. But they are outliers for the most part. And in an alternative universe, they're still champions, but they take a loss.
Yeah.
I mean, John Jones did take a loss, right? In an alternative world, the fight with Gleason Tebow was judged by some other people, and they go, actually, I give you that round.
For Khabib, yeah.
Exactly.
And Reyes, well, or Matt Hamill.
Exactly.
You can pick what you want.
Exactly, right? Or Ilia Topuria on the next day, actually, he does recover against Jai Herbert, but doesn't knock him out, and then he loses the decision. So you're never too far away from that. But my point was, I couldn't help but think that was going to be a good thing for him. I think it was going to be a good eye-opener. I think it was also going to sort of not slow him down, but I think maybe taking a step back from the fast pace of it is not a bad thing. Because
galvanizing him. That's
let's
what it
just
will do.
let's say he gets a win there, right? And he continues as that fight was going on, he gets a big win. You've really only one fight,
Especially
1.5
at flyweight.
fight. You have to know the weight class, right? So you're kind of 1.5 fights and crazier things have happened. He may be fighting for the title.
If
after
Dan
that.
Henderson at number 13 can fight for a belt, then anyone can. I'll say that.
At flyweight, if you're in the top 15, it's not crazy to suggest your next fight could be for the belt because the Pantosias of the world have cleared out the division. So I'm not saying his next fight was going to be for the belt. I'm just saying crazier things have happened and it's not outside the realm of possibilities. So now you're fighting for a championship belt in a 5-round fight potentially against the greatest of all time. And you've not had 10 fights.
Yeah.
So
He wouldn't have been ready for that. I think you would even admit that as well.
Of course not. Like, no one's ready for that at 9 fights. And even, by the way, if you have the skill set, I just want to put this out there as well. It isn't to say he couldn't win that fight. It's not to say it's not winnable, because when you have the devastating striking skills that he does, you have a chance with everyone.
Yeah.
And I've seen that as well firsthand. I've seen him with the most elite top 5, top 3 guys at flyweight in the UFC and how his skills compare. So I know that that's not a million miles away. So it's not that it's not winnable, but you almost don't want to be in a position where you're 25 years of age with not
25.
with not even 10 fights.
Fuck.
And you're fighting at that level. So I actually do think in hindsight it's going to be one of those that did you a favor a little bit.
I agree.
Right? That did you a favor, which obviously you kind of wish it doesn't play out like that, but at the end, what are you going to do? So in the post fight, don't get me wrong, he's obviously devastated. Yeah, of course. Obviously, he's devastated. And the energy is... And the energy isn't like Macau where we get back into the room, we're doing soju shots and we're having the drinks at the after party, we're getting leg kicked by Justin Gagey and we're having a right turnout. That wasn't quite the vibe. But what you also have to remember after this fight is everyone isn't going to be the same. And you can go back into your hotel room and you can just lament the fact that you've had this loss and you can just mull that over and just make yourself sick in the mind, just replaying what you could have done, should have done, would have done differently. But the truth of it is that has happened.
Yeah, as you said.
That has happened, right? You cannot change that. So you can only change the outcomes moving forward. So there's almost no benefit in going back to your hotel room and just feeling like his friends had travelled out there, his girlfriends had travelled out there, and obviously he's with his close sort of friends and corner and team and whatnot as well. So we went back, we went and had dinner, and then we said, look, we're in Shanghai. You're fighting in front of your hometown, essentially. You've been treated like a superstar. Me, Frank, and Lou are getting chauffeured to the arena.
Fucking wild.
We're sitting in the crowd. Everyone's screaming, coming up to us, asking us for photos and videos, and he's signing left, right, and centre. I said, well, we all said collectively, look, let's go to Shanghai. Let's go to a bar. Let's sit down. Let's have a drink, and let's just enjoy where we are. Because there's going to be a time where you're old and grey and you look back on these times and yeah, you lost that fight, but you also won that fight because the fight, I know it sounds very cliche, in this life is getting to a position where you can be fighting in front of arenas. A couple of years ago, you're fighting in a sports hall in Crawley. And now you're in
the 0.1%.
Now you're in Shanghai in front of the home crowd, getting treated like a superstar, doing media left, right, and centre, getting paid thousands of pounds to go and perform in front of these people, put on a show, and you came up short. You came up short. So you have two options. You can go back to the hotel room and sit and cry about it, which you should have. You need to mourn that at some point. Or you can celebrate the fact that you're here right now, you get to live a blessed life, you have your health, you have your friends and family, and you're doing the job that you love. And that isn't to say that, oh, okay, cool, I'm just happy to be here and a loss is what it is. That kid does nothing but fight, and he has a winner's mentality. So I said to him as well, I said to him, what's the other outcome? You're going to say, oh, this sport isn't for me and I'm probably just going to pack in training. Like, are you going to do that? It's like, of course not. So what is there to do? So we go out in Shanghai and actually have a flipping good night out as well. Shanghai is a really, really fun city. Super cheap.
Really?
Super cheap. I couldn't wrap my head around.
How much for a pint? Obviously, I don't drink, but that's like the bar, you know. That's the
£1.50.
Fuck.
I'm going into a bar. Granted, the second one we went into weren't the best. We're going into a rooftop bar, and I'm paying near enough London price. I'm paying a tenner for a bottle of beer or something.
Fuck.
Right? But listen,
London's not even that expensive.
I'm in a sick rooftop bar in the centre of London. So in the centre of Shanghai, overlooking the whole skyscraper. It was just a really, really cool place. So it goes from £10 there to just a normal bar, and then we're paying £1.50 for an Asahi. Happy days on a bottle of beer, right? You're getting a cab from here to 20 minutes down the road, you're paying £1, £2. The cabs were just ridiculously cheap. It was a really, really cheap city, and it kind of really blew me away. You're paying 65p for a Monster in a petrol station. There's my
yeah, that's your metric. Yeah. That's your
there's my point of reference. Yeah. But I've got to talk about this actually, because I've got to go every fight week. I have a few sort of crazy stories or interactions or whatnot. It just so happens to be that I'm in the weight room, the weight workout room, of Brian Ortega.
Oh, okay.
During weight cut gate.
Shit.
So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. Against Aljamain Sterling. Yeah. So for a little bit of context, just to cast your mind back, Brian Ortega is fighting Aljamain Sterling, a phenomenal matchup, which I've been talking about for the longest time.
It's been in the makings for a while.
But shouldn't be fighting at 45.
No.
Anyway, at the end of this whole ordeal, he goes to hospital, comes back out of hospital, fights off, fights back on. Okay, they make it a catch weight, and he's arguably the most ill-looking human being you've ever seen on a weight.
It's crazy.
Is that a fair statement to make?
I mean, it's every time he fights.
Yeah.
There's always weight problems.
This was different. And maybe it's different as well for me because I saw the whole process. So for anyone that doesn't know, you get two workout rooms in the UFC and the UFC hotel. You get the blue corner and the red corner. So if you're fighting in the red corner, obviously you go into that changing rooms so you don't mix.
Yeah.
Obviously you bump into each other through the hotel, but you don't train in the same rooms. Brian Ortega was in our workout room. So at the end of the week, so it's the Thursday, this is when everyone is cutting weight. So no one's really working out too much in these rooms. They're mainly just cutting weight. So they may be going on the bike, maybe they're just hitting some soft pads, but more times than not, they're just sweating out. We go in there about 5 p.m. with Lon and the team, and it's just Brian Ortega and his entire posse with him cutting weight. And at this point, they were saying, no one can come in here, and that's just not how the game goes. It's just like, mate, this is the workout room. I don't make those calls. I leave that to Ash. Yeah. I leave that to Jose, who's obviously as well as. That's another angle of it, right? You got Jose Diaz, who is. I mean, he came up through the entire ranks with Ilia Topuria. So he's seen this game at the very highest level and basically gone from a professional outside of the UFC to champion, to double champion, to superstar. Yeah. So it does give you a very good insight, just picking his brain as well, just around the subtleties around Fight Week, which is quite interesting.
He told Ortega to drink some wine.
Yeah. So this is the funny thing. He's saying, okay, we need the whole weight room. And they're basically like, that's not happening. I like the try, but it's not happening. So Long goes in and he's starting to cut weight on the bike and whatnot. And this was at 5 p.m. Of at which point, Brian Ortega had been in this room, sweatsuit on, cycling and hitting pads for about 3 hours. So he'd been cutting weight for 3 hours. We then leave about 6, 7. Long goes back to the room, and then he's basically going to have a sleep, and in the morning he's going to hit a couple of barbs, and then you make weight. Brian Ortega has been going through the evening, right? Completely through the evening. I go and do some work. I go and have a workout. I go and have dinner. I go and chat to my mate in the lobby. And at this point, it's about 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And the saunas and the steam rooms in the hotel are always 24/7 on the Thursday. because the UFC basically rent out the entire hotel for the most part. So they say, right, we'll open it up because I know everyone has to cut weight. I didn't want to go into the room and have a shower and stuff because it was going to be quite loud and the other boys were sleeping. So I thought, right, I'm going to go to the sauna. I'll have a little sauna of steam. I'll have a shower and then I'll go to sleep. I go into the sauna. Brian Ortega is there with his entire team in the boiling water, in the saunas, in the wraps, in the mummy wraps.
All of it, the works.
The works at 2 a.m. So at this point, he's done 12 straight hours of weight cutting, right? He then, what I later find out, goes through the entire night. So he's weight cutting 2, 3, 4, 5. So now he's done this for a full day. And then it gets to 7 or 8. And that is when he faints, falls over, goes to the hospital. And what we find out the other day is he has a coma. He has a 30-minute coma from the weight cutting, wakes up in the hospital on a drip, getting hydrated.
He shouldn't be fine, should he really? Do you know what I mean? Someone's got to...
Rips the IV out of his veins and just says, no, I'm still fighting. I swear
Animal.
on my life, anyone that asked me about that fight, I said, it's going to look like TJ Dillashaw and Henry Cejudo. He's getting knocked out in the first 30 seconds from contact. There is no way that a human being can endure what I have just seen, look as depleted and as dead, and then you obviously see him on the scale through the media, been in a coma, been to hospital, and not get sparked in a 5-round fight. Bearing in mind that was 5 rounds. There is no way. And it was a boring fight for the most part. It was lackluster. But I have never been more impressed by a human being.
It's pretty, I mean, probably blindly resilient almost. I mean, stubbornly resilient, but that's what a fighter is, isn't it?
But I mean, there's just levels to it. So although I don't look at Brian Ortega or I think of him as the most well-versed fighter necessarily, and maybe he's going to never hold the belt, I will go to say is that man is mentally and physically one of the toughest human beings I've ever flipping seen. And a small detail before I move on from China. Sorry, I'm just speaking at you a lot. There's just a lot to catch up on.
There is a lot.
I'll throw it over to you in a bit and we can obviously chat what you've been going through. But a funny detail to that is they have a radiator in the room where obviously they're just cranking up the heat and obviously making it easier for him to sweat. But what's happened is the boys have left and just walked out the room, and I'm just looking for my sliders before I leave. As I'm sort of looking around, I just kind of trip over something and then I just hear thump. I look down and I just couldn't really figure out what I did or what had just happened. I looked down and the plug was just smoking.
Oh, shit.
Of the radiator. And I'd gone to sort of like pick up the plug thinking I just kicked it out. And it was just a wire. And the entire thing had just exploded of this radiator. I look at the room around me and his training partner is like, and his whole team are just looking at me sort of confused. And I just blown up this whole radiator. He's just giving me a death stare. And I'm looking around, just around his whole team. And it's just me in this room. And I've just essentially smoked out this radiator. And I'm just thinking, this is not ideal whatsoever, but this is pretty funny. So that was the whole...
Pretty weight drained, you could probably say.
I was thinking that. I was thinking...
In a one-on-one, maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking... Any other circumstances, I don't back myself. But right now, I kind of fancy myself against Brad Ortega because, honestly, like all jokes aside, that is when people say you essentially die before you make that weight. That isn't the case for everyone, but that is the case for him. And that is tremendously unhealthy. He needs to go to 155.
He should have gone a long time ago. 100%.
Of course, it goes without saying. So, yeah, we go out in Shanghai. We go to the 24/7 spa the next day and we have a little bit of time in Shanghai and whatnot. And then I go straight to Bangkok. So I'm just a couple of hours away and I think, I've not hit pads in a while, right? I've not hit pads in a while. So, and I'm getting the Muay Thai bug. So if I'm a couple of hours away from Bangkok and obviously my family live there and the baby's there, so not my baby.
I was going to say, that would have been a fucking surprise.
People always get caught off guard with that one. Not my baby. So I thought, I'll fly to Bangkok for a couple of days before the toe wrestling. My original plan was I'll fly to Bangkok and I'll stay there up until Christmas pretty much. But toe wrestling was at the end of the month. So I had about a 10-day buffer. So I thought, right, I'll go to Bangkok. So I flew to Bangkok and then I pretty much stayed with my family and I had a couple of training sessions at my local gym, which I absolutely loved. I was so glad that I did that.
What's that like getting cardio-wise? What's that like getting back into it after a little breakout?
Honestly, oh my goodness. Thankfully, the trainer, dependent on who you get and how your relationship is and what you're looking to do, I'm recreational. I'm going in there to enjoy some pad rounds and have a bit of fun and learn some things.
Yeah, loosen up, learn.
Yeah, it's recreational, right? So they're not making me skip for 20 minutes before and go for a 10K run. He puts on the clock. We hit rounds for an hour, literally just pads for a solid hour. I leave. That's how I love it. I'm not trying to skip. I'm not trying to stretch. I'm not trying to do any of that. I want to get into my session. I want to hit pads and clinch. I want to learn and I want to dip. So your question, how was the cardio? Terrible. Absolutely abysmal. I'm a couple of rounds in and I'm absolutely gassed.
It happens all the time. And even if it's a short breakout, if you're not on that regimen, it just goes. It happens to me all the time.
And you're still new, right? So you're still learning these techniques. I'm telling myself, right, get on the balls of my feet, right, chin down. Okay, retract your jab quicker. So my mind is working a lot. So when you get to a level where you can work on autopilot, it becomes a physical battle of the pads for the most part because you're physically going through it, but you're mentally kind of on autopilot, right? Okay, they punch there, I'm parrying, it's a knee. Okay, now I'm in the clinch, so it's get the position, pummel, elbow, knee. You're working on autopilot, so there's not a lot of mental energy, but when you're new, you're expending a lot of mental energy as well. The same with any sport, really. And that's not spoken about that much. So you're kind of doubling your energy output. So yeah, to answer your question, I was absolutely exhausted, but I found a phenomenal new trainer, which I absolutely love training with. So I'm really excited to get back there and get some rounds in with him. So we go from Bangkok, I fly straight back to England. And as I land, the next day, I am being picked up. This is no joke. I fly back from Bangkok. I get home at sort of midday, right? 12 p.m. or something like that.
8-hour time difference as well. So that jet lag. It's 8 hours, right? It's something like that.
6, sometimes 7.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's 6, sometimes 7. So enough for someone to feel it. But as I always say, I don't do jet lag. It's just not a thing for me. I don't get jet lagged. I don't know if it's because I grew up on the most random time schedules. I think that's a part of it. But it's also a part of
the job.
Whatever that first day is, I get accustomed to the first day. So if I'm arriving somewhere in the morning, I'll arrive in the morning, I'll have a workout and I'll go about my day and I'll have a coffee and I'll crack on and I'll then go sleep at night. Or if I get there in the evening, I try and stay awake on the plane and then get there, have a shower and then go to bed. I just kind of try and adjust. Yeah, I just try and adjust to where I get it. I know everyone's not the same, but for me, I honestly don't really get jet lag. So it's not much of a, and also, not to be funny, it's up here. If you tell yourself, oh, I'm so jet lagged and tired.
Yeah, you just fall into that.
And you play into it a lot. Of course, you're going to make yourself more tired. So I just try not to let that factor in. So I get home at 12 p.m. I basically sit down, have lunch, have dinner, catch up on work. I then have to be in Bethnal Green for 6 a.m. Yeah,
that's not far for you. That's close though.
It's close, but the trains are only just about operating at those times, right?
Yeah, so I was thinking for me, just getting to fucking East London for some reason, just from south to east, is just so fucking awful.
It's not that far, but the train lines are just a mess, right? For me, it's easy. It's just a couple of stops on the Central Line, which is where my office is, right? So it wasn't that bad of a journey, but I don't like getting on the Central Line at the best of times.
It's the worst line.
Once you've had 2 days of traveling on a plane, and that's a whole story for a different time with the people I was having to sit next to. We won't get into that now, but you don't really fancy getting on the train and then having to, I wasn't driving, thankfully, but driving 4 hours to Derby. So I get to Bethnal Green. We're meant to be meeting McDojo Life.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Right. He goes out on, he wouldn't probably describe it as a bender, but for all intensive purposes, he goes out on a bender the night before.
Fuck's sake.
So we're smashing down his hotel door room, picking him up at 6 a.m. from London. He doesn't answer. So he's flown all the way from Miami to London We hear nothing from him. He's not answering his phone. So regardless, we go to Derby on a 4-hour drive. And now this is Friday morning.
And he's not with you.
He's not with us at this point. So just on that, 6 a.m. goes by, 7 a.m. goes by, 8 a.m. goes by. We get there, 9 a.m. goes by. We're now there setting everything up. We then have lunch. Boom. It's about 1 p.m. We get a message. That was a $500 mistake. So he has basically put his phone on charge, and in America, they don't have on switches.
Oh, that's right.
So they're just used to plugging it in and it let rip. So his phone died, didn't have any alarm, of which he's woke up sort of midday and thought, oh my goodness. And he's got a cab from London.
Oh my God, no.
All the way
Black cab or Uber?
Uber.
Okay, all right. Still, but fuck.
All the way to Derby. So it cost him about £400, I think, doing that. So that was that whole side of the story. We arrive in Derby and we're setting up this event at the pub, and the cameras are rolling, the documentary's going, we're getting things together. Biggest event that we've ever had, £10,000 on the line, the biggest sponsor we've ever had, one of the biggest companies in the world in the shoe game at the moment as our main sponsor. So,
which is
Vibram. Vibram Five Fingers, or Vibram as they're known, genuinely one of the biggest shoe companies in the world right now. The people that they're working with, the products that they're building, the marketing campaigns, the content that they make, it's by far one of the most innovative and edgy, creative, and honestly, just cool brands that are out there at the moment.
Yeah,
exactly. Right?
Creatively aligned.
Is absolutely perfect for us. So a phenomenal sponsor, super happy to have those on board. But my point to that was there's an enormous stage going on. There's basically not a main stage of like a V festival, but a side stage, like a big side stage of production going on. So there's a big production, big stage, loads of monitors, screens, all the production getting set up. And boom, I just hear these screams. I just look around and I just kind of froze and didn't really know what was happening. And I just see one of the men that was basically putting up the stage. So it's a separate company that bring the stage up and then they set it up. So it's nothing to do with us. But he's setting up this stage and the stage just drops on him like this. And his knee just buckles inward.
Oh my God.
And just explodes.
Fuck.
His knee just explodes.
Happened to a guy in my gym not that long ago. And you know, whenever it's, you've probably heard, have you heard that at GBTT? Just ever? When someone's knee just blows. Because they scream and then it's dead silence. Yeah. And you're like, fuck.
And there's something very eerie about hearing a grown man.
You know straight away as well.
Scream.
It's only when it's a knee injury that a grown man screams like that.
And it went very interesting because he actually used to be, this blew my mind the most. He used to be 50 stone.
What is that in kg? I mean, fucking hell.
Times 6.5. So like 170 kilos, maybe.
Fuck me.
Something like that.
Really?
Potentially more. So he's gone from 20. He went from 50 stone, sorry. And he lost.
Nah.
How many kg?
317. I don't believe.
Kg?
I don't believe that. It can't be.
What?
Yeah.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Jesus Christ.
300 kegs.
Nah, that's... Is that even possible? He should be dead.
Please times that by 2.2. So I need 300. Let's just call it 300. Times that by 2.2. That should be around, what, 720 or something?
660.
660. So it was 660 pounds for our American listeners. Regardless, he lost 27 stone. So over half of his body weight. That just blew my mind. That wasn't really anything to do with the story, but I just painted the picture. So he's blown his knee out, and now he's just on the deck, chain smoking, calling pretty much everyone he knows. His ex is calling him, his wife is calling him, and he then gets air ambulanced out of there.
Now.
Yeah.
Only at a toe wrestling event.
Only at the toe wrestling. So we've not even got to the actual day of the event, and now this geezer's blown his knee out and the air ambulance is there. So anyway, we go on to the next day, and now it's the actual event, and it was manic from behind the scenes because we're having to pull so many pieces in place. Obviously, we've got the production, we've got the crew, we've got the competitors, we've got the media, we've got so many different people coming from different organizations. We've got people coming from the Times, we've got our sponsors, we've got the mayor there cutting the ribbon. So there's a lot of components and a lot of moving pieces. And for me, it was just here, there, and everywhere, just sprinting. I got my Vibrams on, I got my vest on, and I'm just absolutely everywhere. I'm refereeing, I'm competing, I'm getting drinks for the mayor, I'm doing content, I'm literally doing everything.
Dana White?
Not doing everything as no one else was doing everything, but putting a lot of hats on was my point. So it's very intense. It's absolutely pissing it down. It's the most torrential weather you've seen in the last 4 months. There wasn't a drop of rain leading up to it, and it's gone torrential.
It had to be.
So the production monitor has just got flooded and has caved in. So then we have to reboot that. That gets going again. And it's gone on for a little while. And anyway, it turned out to be a phenomenal event. A girl that was never meant to be competing rocks up, youngest champion ever, 23 years of age, comes from a lineage of champions. There's 17 world champions in her family name. She rocks up that day, wins $5,000, goes home with $5,000. The strong man that we brought in to beat the champion, he snaps his toe. He's hobbling off. So I've got one of the strongest men in the world, like around my shoulder, like hobbling up to the car. And all in all, a manic, but a very incredible event nonetheless. So that was August.
Mic drop.
That was August.
I wish I could have something that would even remotely, in terms of, I guess my last few months have just been characterized by a lot of change. Not necessarily a lot of stuff going on, but just my day-to-day being very different now than it was not that long ago.
What did it look like before? And what does it look like now?
Well, what did it look like before? It was the status quo. I think it was just getting caught up in the editing grind. I was talking to a couple of people who work in the space, and I was like, just trying to think about why I kind of felt a bit alienated from making the MMA stuff. And a lot of it was, part of it was burnout, but a lot of it was a lack of reward for the amount of work I would be putting in. So, and that volatility, do you know what I mean? And obviously there is an element to it where you have to be willing to engage with that and just say, okay, we move on to the next video. But a lot of times it'd be 3 weeks of work for 1,000 views. That happened to me a couple of times, and it was just like so disheartening. And also the MMA community was just very, we've had that conversation before. We know how volatile the MMA space is, and the people within it, they're not,
Sorry to interrupt you, but when you say alienated, what do you mean by that?
I'm not going to say I'll be careful my wording, but politically, I'm not aligned with probably a lot of the people who do operate in the space, which
creator-wise or fan-wise?
Realistically, probably both on average, more so fans. And that's fine. But it does sap some energy from you because it is quite toxic. MMA innately is a very toxic space, and you have to work actively, I think, to avoid a lot of those sort of pitfalls. But equally, obviously, as I said, on the other side, the work side of things, I think just getting lost in the editing timeline, it was just draining me a little bit. And I think what I need to do is take a step back and then reframe how I'm approaching work. And now it's more about treating it in the way you talked about it a while ago, and I've heard the sentiment shared before in terms of treating it not as work and leisure, but as one and the same, treating it as one entity and sort of being a bit more fluid with what I'm doing. And also I had that desire to go down, not the same path, but in the same route that you've taken in expanding from an MMA brand to just something that represents you. I always felt like my channel with the content that I was making always missed that. It lacked that. It was MMA focused. I always used to say the saying that my videos were about the fighters. They're never about me. They're about the stories. They're not about me. Even though I would tell them and I would be very proud of the work that I'd made, it was never me. It was Tom Aspinall. It was Ilia Topuria. It was Charles Oliveira. It was Alex Pereira. It was all of these guys. And I was just sort of conveying their stories. And obviously I'd been doing stuff on my second channel with the game stuff, like here and there, on and off, but I would never have the energy to make them because I'd be so focused on putting all of my energy into making the MMA videos. And I think it just stemmed from inevitably wanting a change of pace, I don't know. It's one of those things where starting again is exciting. It's exciting starting something from scratch, really, with putting full force into it now. That's really exciting.
Just on that, and I've got a couple of things to ask you, but just on that, when you say it's exciting starting a new thing, did you battle with the idea of the shiny toy syndrome?
For sure. And that's definitely, obviously, that is an inevitable thing to an extent. It's just a matter of how you manage it. And that's already worn off now because I've been tripping along with it for a little while now. But I think it was more so not about the novelty of it, but it was the desire. Because obviously I had been doing these videos. I've been doing them for over a year on and off. But again, sometimes I'll go 2 months without making one. So I was never really committed to it at all. So it was more about the excitement of trying something that was what I mentioned before about how you approach your brand in terms of it being more about you, more personable, more from the heart. I think that's a good way of representing your content. And that's something that I wanted to make. And yeah, I'm just enjoying it a lot more than I was the MMA videos. It's again, as I said, doing something new and building something from scratch is exciting. And that obviously will wear off and the shine is starting to go. But making that kind of content is just a lot more gratifying. Even though, like I say this all the time, like when my MMA channel was, smashing it, like I could get like 100K views on a video, but I could pull 1,000 on my games one and it would mean 10 times more. You know what I mean? Because it's from the soul, it's from within, it's more aligned with me as a person, not the fighter that I'm making the video on, right? So every view and every nice comment I get that sort of sees the vision of what I'm trying to make is so gratifying. And I think obviously it's early stages, but obviously some of the videos are done really well. One of my ones recently, like a few weeks ago, 14,000 views.
Wow.
14,000 views on me just talking to the camera with a green screen panel in the back.
Yeah.
And it was exactly the type of people I wanted on that channel. Like it completely understood like the vision of what I was trying to create. And it was such a positive space, which is such a complete contrast to how toxic the MMA space can be. Like my comment section, always a war zone. And I know it's easy, you can say, to just avoid it and not, but I want to be around a place online where people are engaging with me in a positive way and the content that I'm producing. And so many people are resonating now with the format that I'm doing. They just like the idea that it's relaxed, it's laid back, and they really, really like it. And that's such a tell for me that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that it's taking off. And it already is doing well. So.
There's quite a lot there that I want to sort of unpack. I think that last thing that you said about being in that environment where people are a bit more like-minded, I think what you get as a result of leveraging other people's stories and the sport, if you like, is you then get the fan base that goes along with that.
Yes.
So you will get some people that are aligned to your channel and how you create and how you speak. For the most part,
most consumers aren't invested in the creative process.
Of course, right? So you're coming for the story of Ilia Topuria and the story of the UFC. So you bring in a lot of people that are not necessarily going to be as aligned. Now, if you had a page where you still spoke about Ilia Topuria and you still spoke about these stories within the sport, but it was just you talking head, you'd probably find that alignment with the fan base would be a lot more closer to you.
Of course.
But where you take that back seat, like you mentioned, which is quite interesting because what you said there about the MMA space and building your channel on what you've built up until now, I think is a very valuable lesson because it's a difficult balance to understand. Like I said, am I just getting the magpie syndrome where I see something shiny and I want to move on to the next thing? Because I think we spoke about this before. There's a life cycle in entrepreneurship. I think I heard Alex Hormozi talk about it, where it starts as an uninformed optimist. So you have no information on something and you're very optimistic about it, right? So you've never created any content on MMA, but you see this opportunity and you think you can make some money on YouTube and you really love MMA and you get very optimistic. And then it goes about 6 months into it and then you become an informed pessimist.
Yes.
So now you have information, you realize how much there is to do, you realize how much work there is to do, you realize how much you have to do to actually make money, and now you have that information, but you become a pessimist. And what people do is then they jump to the next thing. So they go, okay, right, I'm going to now create in this way. So now you become an uninformed optimist, right? And then it just is a cycle that just loops, and you can get caught in this for 10 years. So it's important to recognize, have I lost love with this and I have an innate interest to build this and I want to grow this? Or have I just lost that slight spark? And the last thing before I ask you another question is what's very important that you touched on, whether you noticed it or not, is what I always say to people is, it's funny because I literally have just made a course on this, and this was quite a large part of it. And we can actually remind me to talk about Stand Store at the end because it's relevant for both of us and anyone listening. Everyone thinks that you need to have a concrete understanding of what you are going to do indefinitely. If it's in the creator space, you need to know what you're going to create for the next 10 years. If you don't know, sometimes you just have to gravitate towards things where you know you can gain attention. You knew that you enjoyed it for sure and you had passion towards it, but you knew there was a tension in telling stories, creating documentaries and doing so on YouTube. And in turn, you could monetize that. For me, when I first started, I wanted to chat about MMA. I wanted to have podcasts. I wanted to go around the world. I wanted to cook. I wanted to do cooking shows and the thing. I couldn't do any of that. No one knew me. I had no idea. I was terrible on camera, had no reps, had no money. So you then have to go a step back and think, right, if I don't know what to do, I need to learn how to get attention. So I would just find clips on the internet.
You're shortcutting, really. That's what you're doing.
Of course,
and
right?
that's fine. Yeah.
Because you don't know what you want to do. So you just have to think, right, okay, I'm going to get some reps and I'm going to try and do some things that get attention. And not attention as like, oh, look at me, but attention is the digital currency. And that's what makes the world turn round. And when people talk about algorithms, they're not talking about this supercomputer that's spitting out numbers and all of this rhetoric that people spit online. That's not the case. We are the algorithm, as we speak so much about human behavior is.
I think about that all the time. I remember that conversation we had, and I always correct myself mentally when I think about the algorithm or saying that word. I treat it as people, not a system.
And I know I'm super pedantic on it, but I think I am because I see how crippling it is to people. Yeah. And they're sitting there banging their head against the wall of, what does the algorithm want? The algorithm's changed. No, nothing changes. It's just people.
That mindset has really carried me with what I'm doing now with the game stuff. It's a weird thing because in a lot of ways, I've got the advantage of the fact that I built that MMA channel up to nearly 43,000 subscribers. Yeah. And it's like, I'm obviously very proud of that. And I can translate a lot of those skills over. But really, the format is so different. And my approach is so different. I'm almost it's kind of is from starting from scratch, knowledge-wise to an extent, but I'm reminding myself of, as you said, not treating it as an algorithm, treating it as people and what I think people would resonate with the most. And I've had that conversation on a wider scale when we're talking about AI and stuff, and I don't want to delve into it too much, but now more than ever, and this demand is only going to go up, I think, over the next few years, is a period where
That'll make my moves. That'll begins.
A period where people are just craving that real raw human connection and more authenticity in content, more stripped back, more uncut. All of those characteristics. I think the word I really started to resonate with recently, and when I texted you before and I said some ideas that I want to build out, is content that is, the word I use is cozy. And that's the vibe exactly I want to fit. And so many people, as I mentioned in my comment section, already resonate with that. And that's the type of content that I want to build. And I'm ignoring all of the last 5 to 10 years of rules of YouTube in terms of packaging and stuff like that. I'm doing it my own way. Yeah. And this is what I'll tell you, it's mental, right? So my video that did really well, the 14,000 views, guess what the click-through rate peaked at, by the way? When it was at 8,000 views, guess what the click-through rate was? I think I might have texted you this, I can't remember, but
14%?
No, not that high. But
I remember you messaging me, it's like crazy.
Yeah, it peaked at 9.5%.
Yeah.
That's fucking batshit. I wouldn't even get close to that on my MMA videos. Despite the fact those thumbnails I made were fucking banging. I'll back it. They were really good. And the click-through rate was solid. It was like between 4 and 6%. Sometimes.
What is a click-through rate?
Sorry, my bad. Click-through rate is the percentage of people that click on a thumbnail. So when they see your video in the feed and they see the thumbnail, the percentage of people that click on it.
Which is why YouTube is still so different to every other platform, because every other platform you are shown a video and you have to swipe off of it to go past it. Whereas on YouTube, you have to go out of your way for the most part to click into a video. So the dynamic is actually very different. But I think you're 100% right. And I like that word cozy. And I do think that's 100% where you're going to see the next shift of YouTube leaning, because I started realizing this on a small scale as well. And I realized it on a larger scale. And as I always say, there's no set rules in the world.
No,
we
exactly.
put these things in the buckets, right? So what you realize is life lessons from other places in your life are hugely transferable. And what I mean by that is in branding terms. If you go on some of the, now this has changed a little bit recently, they've made it a little bit cleaner, but if you go on some of the biggest podcasts in the world, you look at the Joe Rogans, you look at the Theo Vons, and you look at some of the thumbnails and you think, that's messy. And I don't like that. And it doesn't sit nice on my eyes.
But it's theirs.
But it's theirs.
Yep.
But it's theirs.
It's like that green box. You know what I mean?
But
On the Joe Rogan
it's
thing.
theirs, right? That's the key thing. Like, that's exactly that. Like, just give me a good ball. It's theirs. It's theirs. It doesn't matter to a certain extent what it is, how it looks, and how it's done. If you can create an audience around that,
yep,
authenticity will shine through. And that is a word which is completely played up. You're 100% right. As the world shifts more into AI, and I am a massive proponent of AI, by the way, that is just going to become even more important. As I always say, AI is not going to take over the world the same way the internet didn't take over the world. And it's certainly not going away. So you've really only got a couple of choices. You can get scared and don't learn about it and get yourself behind the 8 ball, or you can embrace it, learn how to use it to a level which is going to accommodate your life no matter what you do, and allow it to help you and benefit off of it. So AI is not going to take over the world. Smart people using AI will take over the world. And I'm not going to go on the tangent of that, but it's a very good point of what you say. It's theirs. And I started thinking that with my GBTV thumbnails, because I was...
Yeah, because I don't... if I'm being real, speaking as a friend, I don't think your thumbnails are good. If I'm being honest, I don't think they are. I think they could be much better.
I don't, in a weird way, like them.
Yeah.
Right? And I know that sounds strange, but hear me out on this. I had a thumbnail which was in the style that I do them now as one of my first ever ones, right? And the video outperformed everything 10x.
I've had that. I've had exactly.
Right?
I've had situations like that.
So what I then did with my... And I'll continue to experiment. I'll put this out there. But what I then did was I leant away from that. And then if you actually look at some of my older GBTV thumbnails, they're actually pretty cool, right? They're actually professionally shot photos that I've taken on a camera that I've edited in Photoshop. Mm-hmm. Not like crazy. There's no crazy text. There's no crazy arrows. There's not anything like that. It's just very clean headshots. And then I started experimenting with those, and the videos weren't changing too much. And then I was looking at the click-through rates, and I was just asking people. It was like, and what I found is they just weren't performing very well. So I thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll just continue to run experiments. So I was like, right, okay, I'll take this style of where I just have an action shot, very saturated, 2 big arrows, couple of text.
But it works, right? It doesn't look clean, but it works.
And then I just started looking at it and I was like, no, I don't like it. And I like this one and that's more artsy and that's cool. So I'm going to do that. And they just weren't performing well.
Yeah.
But the videos were for the most part the same. And I was stress testing it. I was A/B testing it with the feature on YouTube of just... People wasn't clicking the other one. So I was like, forget it. I'll just make it look like this. And then I realized it doesn't matter what it looks like. If someone looks at my thumb, I guarantee you don't like that thumbnail, but I guarantee when you look at it, you think of GBTV nowadays. If you watch every episode.
And also mine, I am speaking from a creative perspective. Again, what we mentioned earlier, people don't care about the creative process who are watching videos. They don't really care about the thumbnail that much, really. Oh. They care about the video, how good the video is. They care about enjoying a video for 5-10 minutes.
Because we start looking at it through... The perfect example of this is photography. When you do photography to any decent level, what you get is then photography snobs, right? Who, firstly, are always upset if photos don't perform as well as videos on Instagram and all of that. But what I mean by that is they look at photos and they go, oh, that's not exposed in the right way. The white balance is trash. They've not saturated. And all of those points may be valid. And the photo that they've taken from a technical standpoint may be 20x better, but they're missing the crucial part.
Yeah.
What resonates with people? What resonates with someone more? It actually is irrelevant. And what you need to do in content, which is very difficult to do, and it's a continuous cycle, you have to remove your ego. You have to remove your ego.
I've been there.
You look at your thumbnails now, your self from 6 months ago would never, like for the most part, would never, right? You would go and create something a bit more spectacular and you'd go in and you'd go down that whole vibe. But now, like you're saying, you're just making it cozy and authentic and it's pretty much just a screen grab of what's going on there.
Yeah, some minor changes. But again, it is I have to. I can't.
Couldn't help yourself.
No, I have to.
Technically, there was a little crumb on the thing. My point to that is we're looking at it from a professional standpoint.
Yes.
So I can look at that and I know for a fact that there's not an actual screenshot because, all right, you've enhanced the photo a little bit and maybe you blur the background a touch and like vice versa, right? I'm just giving examples, but you see my point.
Yeah.
But my point is, it doesn't matter. Does someone look at that video and want to watch what they know is going to be behind it? And now it's got to a point now where I go through the archives of GBTV now, and because now that's been going on for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. Now people are starting to identify the thumbnail with the videos.
Yes.
Now it's just a case of, I don't like this, but people are.
And that's the thing. Now you have that.
Watching
What's the word I'm looking for? The phrase. It's not pitfall. That's not it. You have. It's like insurance, not insurance, but people are going to watch regardless, is my point.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you put up, because you establish that audience. I always say there's 2 routes with YouTube. You can take the short term or the long term. The last 2.5 years, I've been taking the short term.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
It's short term in the sense of,
right?
yes.
Grabbing attention.
Right. That's exactly, yes. It's short term in terms of grabbing attention because people are there, as I said, for the stories. They're not there for me. Or you can do it the hard way, the long way, where you build that audience over time, who are there for you. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. And it's exciting.
It is exciting, but let's be real, grueling.
Yeah.
People don't realize my first message to Brad Pickett about doing GBTV was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, right? That's a pretty long time. That's a pretty long time to book 2 days off work every week. So to forego that money, then spend the money on the travel, on the cameras, on the subscriptions.
And to persevere. I think that's the more important thing, is persevering through that. That's the hardest part.
Well, in my opinion, it wasn't that difficult because, as I always say, with a lot of the things that I do, I've said it about toe wrestling, I've said it about GBTV, I've said it about my brand, my clothing, anything I'm passionate about more times than not, and I've actually played out a lot. I'll say this: if it isn't as successful as I'm speaking it to be, that's the execution. It's not the concept. I knew for a fact GBTV, bulletproof concept.
Yeah, it's exactly the same with what I'm doing.
Bulletproof concept. So
when, not if.
Exactly, right? And you ask, people may say, well, how would you know that? It's pattern recognition. I go back through the archives of time, right? I know this is a funny example, but I saw the other day Coronation Street or Emmerdale was celebrating 30 years, right? That's a soap opera, manufactured storylines of 30 years. But the storylines can be infinite because they're people's lives. So people have shown to love drama, they've shown to love ongoing series, and they've shown to be invested in people's lives. Kim Kardashian series, The Only Way is Essex, Made in Chelsea. I can go on forever. Literally back to the start of TV. So I knew that the concept was going to be bulletproof. As long as this sport doesn't capitulate and it continues to grow, people are going to become more invested. The sport's going to grow in England. People are going to be more invested. It's going to be the voice of the streets essentially for it. I'm going to elevate the characters, shine a spotlight on them. They're going to get more comfortable on camera. And then it's just going to be this whole loop. And now we're at a point with GBTV where, mate, the other day I got on my YouTube and the last 4 GBTVs were 50, not last 4, but like the best performing 4 were 50,000, 30,000,
Really?
25,000, and then 15,000. And I'm looking at it and just thinking, that's mental.
It is, isn't it? Thing is, though, and then it's going to get to a point where that becomes the norm, and then you're craving more. That's what it is with YouTube. That's the only downside, I would say. But
I've already been humbled.
You've been there. Yeah,
I've already
you've been there.
humbled because I did 2 weeks on the spin where they hit 25,000, which in the context of the world is nothing, right? And also to point out, I've ran socials for myself and for other people for the last 4 or 5 years. So I've been exposed to I'm so desensitized to numbers.
Yeah.
I'm not on YouTube.
No, that's what I'm saying. It is so hard.
I'm not desensitized to thousands on YouTube. So hitting
long form critically, it's so hard. People do not realize how getting long-term viewership on YouTube is. It's
getting your camera
hard,
out
man.
and going, right, I'm going to film this, I'm going to edit this, and people are going to watch it. To hit 1,000 is...
That's the thing. My last long form one did, not my last one, the one before did 1,600.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me.
Which is mad, right? Yeah. And it's just a mental concept. And then obviously just to address the obvious fact as well, that the CPMs are the highest, that it's the most stable, that it's the easiest to know if you have any warnings on the account, that the back end is the most structured. And they're very important things. Because if you're earning money on TikTok, which I have done and am, and had that as one of my biggest incomes, and you can literally get a warning on the flip of a hat and get your account banned, and then the CPM drops to 0 on the 14th of every month.
Stupid, isn't it?
Out of nothing, it's very volatile. And if you're trying to operate a business for the most part, off the back of that, and trying to put cash through the business off the back of that, it's scary because you don't know if it's going to be there tomorrow. So that was a flipping eye-opening experience when that first started happening on TikTok. So the stability of YouTube, and people say, oh, but what if it disappears? Firstly, I'll go and smash it on the next thing that pops up. And secondly, it is only showing to grow because now every TV you buy has integrated YouTube. Every console you buy has integrated YouTube.
The amount of YouTube, you should check your, I'm sure you've probably already done this, but check your audience data.
80% on TV.
I'm actually curious on what mine is. I can't remember off the top of my head.
So on my GBTV episodes, and this comes back to what I was actually saying when you said about cozy, I'm glad you said that because it triggered a thought. I was actually looking in my analytics, and when you first start YouTube and you hear people talk about analytics, and there is importance to that, but there's actually not. I'm actually going to go out on a limb there. There's actually no reason to look at your analytics really in the first year of YouTube. I don't think there's much. Don't get me wrong. There's nuance to that, and sure you can take some details. But my point of it is you've not got any reps really.
Yeah,
you've not got any reps, so you need to just focus on making more, for the most part, and making them better. And looking at your sure, you could look at your click-through rates and think, oh, okay, my thumbnail's not performing well. Your video is actually crap. So it's like, do you see my point? It's almost like put blinkers on for a year and then worry about your analytics. The reason I say that is because at the start of YouTube, you'd hear people always talk about analytics and look at this and look at that. And in my opinion, for most people, if you're doing that, I'm not going to put a time frame on it because it's changed for everyone, but it's premature optimization. You're prematurely optimizing. You're optimizing for analytics where you just need to improve your videos. Your audio is not that great. Your shot isn't that stable. Your color grading's way off, right? So it's premature optimization. But my point is now I've done it for a few years and now the analytics are a little bit more stable. Now I can look into the back end and think, right, okay, so my traffic's coming through here and my click-through rate's that. And okay, people preferred that thumbnail and make adaptations, which a year ago, 2 years ago, meaningless for the most part. The videos
I'm still
just weren't as good.
obviously we're building a new channel. I'm in that early stage now where it really is like one video might have a crazy click-through rate, one might not. It's about YouTube needs to try and push it to the right people. That's kind of the drawback to what I'm doing at the moment in the short term, where obviously I'm doing videos on completely different games every week, all random topics, right? So YouTube doesn't really know where to. That was probably picked up on the mic. YouTube doesn't really know where to push the video straight away. So sometimes it takes a few days.
Yeah,
like it can happen like that, and that's a short term problem really. So analytics, I'm not.
You see what I'm saying about that premature optimization, right? Because if you go into the YouTube guru side of things, and they are right in helping you understand them and improve them, and there is, I mean, I'm not sitting here telling you they're not important. They most certainly are. But at a level where you have some consistency to actually draw conclusions to things.
Yeah, then you can start applying.
And then you can start applying, because at the start it's so sporadic anyway. It's really hard to tell what's what in the back end of it. But my point about where you said about making cozy videos, I heard someone say something along these lines and it really resonated to me because I think everyone's guilty of it. For the most part, we live in a generation where you don't start eating your food until you found the right video on YouTube. Most people do that.
Yeah.
Right? Most people in today's society are not...
Dinner and YouTube.
They'll sit down and they won't start really eating their food or at least maybe they'll just start eating their food, but they'll be flicking to find the right thing on YouTube to watch whilst they're eating their dinner. And I thought about it and I thought, I need to make a video that people are going to watch when they eat their dinner. Like that's the highest praise for me. That's my slogan
I've had those
in my
comments.
head. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the tagline I was running in my head. And I remember making this episode of GBTV and thinking, I'm making this so that when people sit down this Tuesday at 6 p.m. and they're about to have their dinner, they're going to put on GBTV for 14 minutes and their dinner's going to take about 6 or 7 to eat. And then they're going to put the plate away and they're going to be sitting down for the last 4 and it's going to be the perfect watch for their dinner. And someone literally commented, I watch these whilst I'm eating my dinner. And I just thought, alhamdulillah, we are there. That is the goal, right? So you talk about making that cozy environment and things. Sometimes it's also just creating that moment of space in someone's week. I want to make a video so that someone is going to sit down after work and eat their dinner with it. As simple as that sounds. So I feel like I'm getting to that space now.
Good.
And for the first time ever, I'm getting reoccurring watchers. I'm getting 80% on TV, which to me is
and
amazing.
You see what I mean now. Now you've fully transitioned over to YouTube, really. Not fully, but you know what I mean. There's a lot more attention put there.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? When
100%.
in sort of days gone by in the past when I've talked about establishing that audience, especially even more now with what you do, it's much more pronounced with what you do compared to my MMA stuff. But compared to a platform like TikTok, I feel like there's just a lesser connection there innately. Yeah. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think maybe I don't know if your opinion's changed on that now and you see what I'm coming from.
It never changed. I wasn't saying
I guess you just never explored it because you were just
I'd never said that weren't the case, because each platform, what I would say at the time, or at least what I think I would say at the time and what I believe is, what I would always say is people get emotional about certain platforms. They say this one's this and that one isn't that. But the truth of it is they're all different. They're meant to be different. And what every platform does is have not a different audience because they cross over, but a different atmosphere of conversation.
Sure.
That's the difference, right? That's the major difference. YouTube is going out for dinner with your girlfriend, having a glass of wine, having a nice meal, sitting down, having a good conversation, appreciating the art of the piano player and the meal's exquisite and having a good conversation.
TikTok's having a £1.50 Asahi.
TikTok going for a night out in China and getting on the piss and getting some cheap dopamine. And do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%.
So I think I've never worded it like that, but I'm thinking that's absolutely on the money. It's a good way of
putting it.
Instagram is, okay.
I don't even know.
Right, we're going down the pub with your friends and you're having a decent conversation, but it's jovial for the most part. Sure. But you actually might touch on a few interesting topics. And, how's work going? Actually, tell me about that recent audit that you did, because that's important to know. For the most part, you're having a laugh, but you're getting some good information, right? LinkedIn is, right, okay, you're sitting at the work desk and you're having a conversation with the head of the department and whatnot. So my point is always emphasized on this. There are loads of pros and cons to different things. No platform is better than another. Every platform has a different voice. If you're someone that wants to sell winter jackets or supplements, the best platform I could tell you to go on right now is TikTok. TikTok Live. Go on there. Do it 24/7 a day and you'll probably make 100 grand this month, as mental as that sounds. You ain't doing that on YouTube live streams. That's not happening. So I can't sit here and say, YouTube's so much better than TikTok. It's not. They're all different.
I think, honestly, they're easy. YouTube is such an easy game. It is in the sense that I know for a fact I could build a channel, get it monetized easy in a few months. When we talk about the short term versus the long term, doing something, I would fucking despise making the content, but I could do it easily in pretty much any niche. 100%.
So what is the goal now with that games channel? Or what is the goal now with the MMA space? Where are you there?
That's a little confusing because I was streaming on the MMA space, on the MMA channel still for a while, but I've now moved them over to the game channel because I just have more options there. It's more flexible.
How many videos have you posted in the last 3 months on your MMA channel?
Long form? 3, 2. I haven't posted in about 2 months. No. My last video was my Lee Murray one.
So is it now a position that you're in where maybe you actually revert to what you always spoke about before, where you can make something more meaningful, you can make something a little bit more artistic, for lack of a better word, and a little bit more personal, but also you can just chip away in the background in the month, right?
I would say
so you
that,
have
yeah,
your timeline and you just add a little something on the timeline, you sprinkle it in, because editing takes a whole new lease of life when you're not sitting down doing it 10 hours a day.
And I would say that, but I said I'll be back when the spark comes back, when that desire to make something.
So really, you're
back.
just
I'm not gone. No, it's not because I don't want to ever say that. It's like you said it earlier. I can't remember the exact wording you used, but about, you know, you're not set on everything for like the next 10 years.
Oh no, you're very malleable.
Yeah. And that's just how it is. I'll probably be back at some point on that channel and doing something else. I don't know. Like,
and that's actually
the fun of it. And accepting that, embracing that. Because originally I was so scared to just jump and try something different.
Yeah, because it had been successful and you'd been validated.
As well.
You'd been of course, validated financially. So also it's a scary jump to make, to then get cold, not 100%. Have any money coming in and no one watch your stuff. But it's actually a good point, which goes back to what you said right at the start, which I wanted to touch on, but we went on to another thing. You said about making the games channel now it's more natural and it's easier for you to do.
That's the more important
thing. Feels like play. I don't think it's the game. It's not because you're talking about games. This is my take on this. It's not because you're talking about games. To a certain extent, it is because you're passionate about them and you enjoy them. It's because for the first time ever, you are creating as Leo Cooper. That's the difference.
100%.
That's the difference. I don't actually think it's the difference, from my opinion. It's not the difference in the fact that, oh, now it's games and not MMA. It's because it's natural. It's organic. It's authentic. You can do it with passion. And when you do something innate and you do it for its own sake, work is play, as Naval Ravikant says. So no one can outwork you.
Exactly.
Because it's just playful. You're just sitting down talking about this game challenge. This is easy.
It is easy.
I guarantee if I set up a camera and we watched the craziest fight night together or card and we just flicked it on, didn't even realize it was recording and chatted, and then we just posted that, got 100,000 and you were paid handsomely for it and got branded off the back of it, you go, oh, a little spark for MMA again.
Yeah.
You know? Got a little spark for it. But when you're trudging away and that is the difference, things,
yeah. I'll say, like, even at the best of times, like probably in the last year, even when my channel was fucking flying, I think like still deep down I wasn't resonating with it. I wasn't like, the money's cool, obviously, and I was more motivated and happy. I was more motivated, but it wasn't play. I wasn't that happy making it.
So you could be outworked.
Yeah.
That's the difference, right?
Yeah.
When you're not doing something for its own sake, and this isn't always the case for everyone, more times than not it is. If you're not doing something for its own sake, you'll be outworked. You'll be outworked and you will never be the best. So if you turned that YouTube channel and just said, oh no, this is Leo Cooper MMA, and you made stories, you spoke about them, you put up some of your roles from jiu-jitsu and you had some chats and whatnot, no one's outworking you at that. No one's outdoing you at that because they can't. You're running your own race. But as soon as you say, okay, this is a storytelling platform and I'm going to tell stories.
It becomes a war zone with other creators.
Now it's a war zone, right? Now you're competing because you're not doing it for its own sake, which isn't innate. So now you're competing. And now you're not going to compete with the Mike Caviaros and the
Mixed Martial Academics,
Patrick
Gavias.
Because to them, to Patrick Gavia, he lives and breathes that and nothing else for the most part. He has to, and it's innate, and he cannot be outworked. But you most certainly can be outworked because it doesn't feel like play. And when you get to the desk and you look at your timeline, you think,
I would dread it.
You're going to get outworked. So you can have successes, but you're never going to be fulfilled and you're never going to maximize what you can do.
That's interesting, actually. That's giving me some ideas now.
Yeah.
Now I think about it.
And we spoke about this. This is not a new thought either. We spoke about this many times because you would always say, oh,
it was conflict. I'd say it's what it was. It was conflict. I think I've said this before over the last couple of weeks on stream. I mentioned it as well when people have asked me about it. It's like for the longest time it felt like my pride was getting in the way a little bit of maybe admit. I didn't really want to admit to myself that I wasn't enjoying it anymore.
Okay.
Which is dumb.
Why?
Because it was like, I spent so much long time building this up.
Sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah. And it was like, I didn't want to.
You heard that one before?
Yeah, I know the phrase, yeah. And part of me just didn't want to admit that and just say, that's why I say when it was scary to move on to sort of switch it up completely, it just took some balls to it. But that trip away when I went camping. And I sat on it for a little bit. I said, I'll see how I
Camping
feel.
will do that to a man.
Climbing on Mount Snowdon will do that to a man.
Being out the sticks, being cold, wet, and miserable.
I was like, and I came back and I was like, this is what I want to do. I'll be happier doing this. And that's But now you say it, that's an interesting point. And that's given me some new thoughts. Actually.
Yeah, Naval Ravikant with
the MMA stuff for sure. I did because I never wanted to retire. That's what I said. I don't want to say I'm gone. I'm not gone. It's just when I want to be back, I'll be back.
In my opinion, this is just my 2 cents from the outside looking in. You need to look at that channel as, now don't get me wrong, if you turn around and go, I hate MMA, don't watch anymore, don't want anything to do with it, sweet. Yeah, just like don't think anything of it. But I don't think that's the case. And therefore, that's why I'll say this. I think you should now look at that channel and say, okay, I'm going to completely, and this is not easy to do, by the way.
I know what you're going to say.
I'm going to completely relinquish any ego I have tied into this account, anything that I've done previously, and I am only going to post things that I enjoy doing and enjoy making. If that's me having some highlight clips from my jiu-jitsu role, if that's me breaking down a card, if that's me talking to a fighter, if that's me going to play games with a fighter. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Now you're crossing the worlds, right? But my point is, in that MMA space, you have to reverse engineer that into, okay, how do I like to do MMA? Because sitting down and editing these movies is clearly not the passion. But maybe sitting down talking about MMA whilst playing Resident Evil with light heavyweight is actually really fun to you, right? And maybe that's actually really fun, and not a lot of people create that content. And now that is innately easy to you. And someone goes, oh, that looks sick, and that studio looked well cool, and that video was really cool. Can I come? And you're like, yeah, 100%, yeah, come in next time. And all of a sudden, you've done 4, and you have really good conversations. It's really enjoyable. It's giving you a little spark in the MMA space, and it's just fun to do.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually. No?
It's a fantastic idea.
As
I was saying it, I was thinking,
you're
idea. Flipping welcome. I've put you onto an absolute joke. As I said
that's
it, I thought,
very good idea.
As I said it, I thought, hold up, that's absolutely perfect. So I can't think of anyone else who does that.
Yeah.
Segues very
Gears
easily.
Are turning.
Yeah.
Whether I do it or not, that's another conversation. But
no. You have to do it now. The idea is an absolute...
Is that good?
It's $1 million idea.
It's a great fucking idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because you cross over a lot of things, right?
For
you
sure.
don't have to talk MMA. That's the major difference. This is, again, we'll wrap up on the Stam Store thing because I need to go into this because it is important. No, we've touched a lot of good bases. But as an athlete, as the fighter, you have to build your brand. But where people sometimes get it wrong is they think they have to build their brand around fighting. Wrong. If you're in the MMA media space, the MMA fan space, so it's like us, of course, if you want to be in the MMA space, you have to create around MMA. Now, you can do that through food or gaming or clothes, but it has to tie back to MMA in some way, even if that's just speaking to an MMA fighter. But as the actual athlete, you are the entity, you are the brand, you are going to compete, you are going to go out there and fight. So you don't need to talk about fighting. If you don't want to talk about your camp or breaking things up, you don't have to. If you want to say, oh, these are my favourite fits, happy days. Oh, these are my favourite games.
It's the appeal of listening to a fighter talking about something that they wouldn't normally talk about.
Of course.
That's the appeal.
Right?
Like food fighters.
And exactly.
Same thing.
And also it opens yourself up to actually a broader market of people naturally anyway. So I think naturally it's going to have a really nice segue over for a lot of fighters to go, I'm actually bored of doing these flipping Zoom interviews where people ask me about my camp. I would actually much rather...
If I was a fighter...
I am bored. Like, I'm bored of doing it. I'm bored of hearing it. I'm bored of seeing it. I don't care. I don't want to be in the UFC media rooms. I get denied entry to every single one, even slap fighting. Even slap fighting at Abu Dhabi.
They hate you.
I haven't even mentioned that I'm going to Abu Dhabi in a couple of weeks to work with Nath on UFC 21. I'm also... This is not confirmed yet, but I think I'm going to go to Bispin's tour and do some work with him as well. Nice. So that'll be cool.
I watched his vlog the other day, actually.
It's quite good.
Really good, isn't it?
Quite good.
I watched it last night. Entertaining.
I kind of like the style.
That's what I was going to bring it up with the authenticity. I kind of like the
style, right? I was watching it, I was like, this is a lot more personable. This is a lot more raw. This is a lot more like TikTok. And now I'm actually seeing a shift of how people shoot on TikTok being shot on YouTube. And this is where things cross over. The answer is never one or the other. The answer is always the in-between, right? It's always the ambiguous middle. And now I'm seeing a lot of people, how TikTok blew up was pull your phone up. Snapchat, how Snapchat blows up. You pull your phone up, you film, and boom, it's on the internet. And YouTube was never that. YouTube was a pipeline of production and editing, especially the last couple of years, and thumbnails and A/B testing and all of this. And now it's becoming a little bit more, I'll get my phone out. Okay, there's some decent audio. Like, make sure you kind of got good audio. It's kind of paramount for the most part.
It is. First thing I did.
Yeah, it's kind of paramount.
Get a good mic.
But okay, I'm just whipping out my phone and hey, like I'm here and I'm going to do this. And there's not a cameraman and you can kind of see your arm and you think, wow, I'm really with you right now.
Yeah.
Right? I'm really with you. I'm really a part of that. Circling back to going to Abu Dhabi and doing all these things, there is a phenomenal platform. So you remember when you got onto me about Patreon? My turn. My turn, full 180. This is something that you must look into. Not you should, not down the line. You must look into. Whether you act on it now or in 6 months, I guarantee you one thing, everyone is going to be using it within 2 years. And just seeing who's backing it now and who's investing into the company, it's just a surefire win. Stan Store is essentially the link in your bio. That's not new, but it has everything within it.
So like Linktree.
Like Linktree, and Linktree is getting more advanced now where you can actually have a lot of features, but I'll explain. You can have digital products, physical products, one-to-one products. You can have emailing lists. You can have all of the attachments to all of your links. You can have quite honestly anything in it. And then on the back end of that, you can do your emailing list through it. You can have auto DM features through it. So it is basically a one-stop shop for anything and everything that you could sell to a consumer.
And this is where you're...
Or have a community.
You're putting your course, right?
Because the problem was before, not the platforms. The platforms were great, right? You've got Patreon, you've got Discord, you've got all of these things that do it very well. And I don't think that they're going to disappear. But the problem is you dilute yourself across a million channels. And that's actually what I said to you about Patreon. It was like, it's another thing I've got to commit to. It's another platform.
That's why I'm thinking about going through membership systems.
I've got to go over there to do it. YouTube's got memberships. Yep. TikTok's got memberships. Instagram's got memberships. Facebook's got memberships. Patreon's got memberships.
GBTV with YouTube. Come on, mate. I mean,
Facebook's got memberships. Everything's got memberships. Subscribe. Everything's got that now, right? So the problem is it's getting more diluted than ever. So what Stan Store is basically doing is putting it all under one roof, making it super user-friendly, making it super cheap, to be perfectly honest, making it very, very easy, and it is just changing the game. Changing the game. So instead of having a Patreon and a Discord and a this and a this, you have it all in one place now. Here's your community tab. Here is your digital product. Here's your physical product, whatever else it is. Okay, I want to book a one-to-one YouTube masterclass with you for an hour, £250. Like, there is no reason, there is absolutely zero reason why anyone with skin in the game and real knowledge, not, okay, I set up a YouTube yesterday, okay, I'm a guru, no. And as I always say, you should never teach outside of your knowledge. So if people always get shy that they can't teach things or sell things because they think, I'm not an expert. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to be able to talk to yourself 24 months ago. I'm not an expert of YouTube, but I know 9 million times more than I did 24 months ago. So I can just speak from myself now to myself at the start, even if that's less valuable than the top guru for the most part, right? So you just have to speak to yourself before. Oh, I'm not a black belt. I can't do jiu-jitsu. Oh, I'm not a Muay Thai expert. I can't teach Muay Thai. Well, I know a lot more than I did 12 months ago, so I'll just teach that person. Yeah. I'm not trying to teach a black belt. I'm just teaching the person that's never even gone on a mat. You see my point? So my point of that is if you have any expertise or knowledge in specific things, YouTube's a good example for you, there's zero reason why you shouldn't go home tonight, have a Stan Store.
I'll have a look.
And have a one-to-one call that says YouTube Masterclass for £150 an hour or £150 for 30 minutes, and you put that on your Stan Store. And you get a message or a comment saying, oh, Leo, I absolutely love what you do. Like, how do you do this? And you're like, mate, here's a few tips. If you want anything else, I do like one-to-one calls.
Bang.
Done.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Nice job.
Pretty good way to wrap up.
I think it is.
Right, let me do an intro for this and an outro, and then I think that's a good place to start. So this has been Leo Cooper. I have been Will.Casuals. Now that's a slight name change.
Yeah, I'm dropping the MMA for now.
Yeah, I know. I
don't know what I am anymore.
I don't know who I am. You're Leo Cooper. That's the shift, right? You're shifting into your personal brand, which I think you always said as well. You was always not jealous, this is not the right word, but like envious that I was leaning into just. For sure. I just always said from the get, I was like, I'll just do anything I like. Like, now there's some caveats to that, but for the most part, it's like my brand is me. And I think you always said, like, I'm a bit caught up and I know this is doing really well, but that isn't me. And I just want to lean into more me. So Leo Kubo is who you are. And as I always said to you before as well, that was your YouTube handle.
It was.
So it was always there. It was always there. You just had to lean into it more, which I feel like you're going to do now more than ever. So that's cool to see that adjustment. And I think valuable for people to hear. That's been Leo Cooper without the MMA. This has been Will Casuals. And this has been the MMA Creators Podcast. Keep it casual.